limited time. Figure everybody's going to jump in. My name is Ed Kless. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to be talking about this very important concept of initiating a project. One of the reasons why I think this is such a powerful idea is that as someone who is a professional project manager for a long time, I noticed that so often people are so wanting to get into the planning of a project because it's such an overwhelming sometimes portion of the event, the consulting engagement, that they neglect this initiating the project. And it doesn't take very long to properly initiate a project, but I think you get a huge bang for your buck if you initiate the project correctly before you even start the planning process. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So, by the way, this is how you can get a hold of me. My company name is Threshold. The website is thresholdnow.com. So ed@thresholdnow.com is the easiest way if you want to email me regarding any questions or thoughts on what we have to offer today. The one thing I'm going to start out with too is this is a slide from the Project Management Institute, and I've just adapted it a little bit. And one of the things that I think organizations tend to fall down on is they try to standardize their methodology, and they start by saying we're going to standardize our methodology. The trouble with that is that oftentimes they haven't defined, first of all, common processes, but even more, they haven't adopted a common language. I have asked firms across the spectrum, whether they're consulting firms or whether they're in industry, or just a firm that's a manufacturer or something. Do you have your terms defined properly? They'll say yes, and then when I start digging around a little bit, find out that it's completely different. Like when I say, "What are the objectives of this project?" It means sometimes something completely different from one person to the next. So I really believe in making sure that we have this common language first before we can start to develop either common process and standardized methodology. So just wanted to mention that first as we get into this. The other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about too, and this is another concept that I think is important for understanding why initiation is so important, is this is what's known as progressive elaboration. This is a characteristic of projects. So projects are said to be progressively elaborative. So that's like two SAT words strewn together in a row. So let me talk a little bit about what that means in plain English. It simply means this, and this graph illustrates this: that when we're initiating a project, there is a likelihood of deviation from what we anticipate to be our baseline. This is the zero in this diagram. That we could be off by as much as 75% or 25% in the other direction. And by the way, it never goes in the other direction. It's never less. It's always more. But I joke, but it seems to be true. Now, this data is based on the Project Management Institute and their data as they look at all projects in every industry and every sector. It's a little bit different for IT-related projects. And you can probably guess where I'm going with this. In IT-related projects, and we'll call this small and medium business IT reasons for failure. This is the top five. Over 100 reasons was presented in this survey, and these are the top five answers that they got. The number one answer is that senior executives have failed to buy in. Now, this is astonishing, an astonishing finding and the organization that does this is known as the Standish Group. The Standish Group believes that this number is underreported. While it's the number one reason for failure, they believe that it is underreported. And the reason for that is quite simple. Oftentimes, the person who's filling out the survey was somebody as a senior executive, and they're unlikely to blame themselves for what went on, right? So if I said to you that there was a tool that we could put in place that would not completely, but significantly reduce the probability that the number one reason for failure, which is senior executives failing to buy in, would be significantly reduced, would you be interested? And the answer they get back is yes. You can't tell me fast enough. Like, what is this? If I can reduce the number one reason, what is it? And the answer is surprisingly simple. It's actually documenting the the project initiation. There are 3 documents that make up project initiation. I'm not going to go through all 3 of them today because we simply just do not have the time, but I'm going to mention all 3. The first is a feasibility analysis, which simply asks this question: do we think this is feasible? It's a little bit more elaborate than that, but not much. And then the second document is a cost benefit analysis. I'm sure all of you have seen something around this lines. This is a spreadsheet that says, here's what we think the benefits of doing this are, and this is what we think the possible costs are. You kind of look at that and say, if the benefits outweigh the cost, we move forward. Yes, we engage. Yes, it's a little bit more elaborate than that again. But what I really want to focus on today, and we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about this, is the project charter document. Now, I'm going to hopefully launch into this project charter. Oh, it went to a different spot. That's okay. I can get it here. Charter. Okay. So I'm just going to bring this document up and show you what is involved in this project charter. It's a 2-page document, and we'll usually not get any longer than this. Right? It's pretty standard language that you would use. And you can see what it talks about here. Okay, so the executive summary. This document formalizes project name. By the way, just quick sidebar conversation. Strongly recommend that projects have some kind of a name. I think that that's important to give any kind of this kind of an event inside a company its own identity, its own name. And when you give it a name, it kind of works to your advantage to have this is not the new accounting system or the Acumatica update, right? It's going to be something that's a little bit more explicit for a particular targeted reason. So I find that naming a project can be very helpful. So as of today, Monday, December 1st, 2025, we are embarking on this project because we must. And then you just simply type in what is the biggest reason for us doing this. We must do something, and why. Here's where the notion of the charter begins to really kick in, and that is in this section where we define 2 key stakeholders. One is the person who is the executive sponsor, and the second is the person who is the project manager or the project lead, whatever language and nomenclature you use in your organization. But notice that we have to define those 2 people. Remember, what I'm solving for here is the number 1 reason for failure, which is the fact that senior executives have failed to buy in. And the way that we do that is making sure upfront in project initiation that we have that backing of the most senior person in the organization, i.e. the executive sponsor. Notice that the author of this document is the executive sponsor. And that's an important point, that the executive sponsor is the person whose name effectively is on this document and says, no, this is what we're doing and I am taking the responsibility for this. So I'm just going to go through some of the language on here. I, executive sponsor, and the title, CEO of the company, CFO, whatever it is, will be the executive sponsor. My role will be to ensure the ultimate success of the project and champion and mentor the project manager. This person also says, I will be signing off on the planning documents and any change requests that happen as a result of this. So right here, what we're doing is we're giving this person the authority. Right, we're saying that this is the person who has this authority to sign off on these planning documents and approve change requests. If you have any questions, I can be reached at blah, 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 blah. If you want to take that stuff out, totally understandable. I am presenting this in a Word document just because it's easier for me. Yes, of course, because this can be just a pro forma email that goes out to a lot of people. That's perfectly fine too. But what's important here to note is the elements. Okay, so we've defined who the executive sponsor is and that they are the author of this project charter. Now, the executive sponsor, it should always be somebody who is someone who works for the company that is doing the project, right? It should not be an outside person. The project manager can be, but isn't always, but it can be. But the executive sponsor can and should be somebody who works inside the organization. Right? So that's just one thing I want to mention there. Project manager. So-and-so will be the project manager, and as such is authorized to plan and conduct any activities, and, this is an important point, make any necessary expenditures for the approved budget of. So this is where we're going to put the high level budget that we have in here to say up to $5,000, $50,000, $500,000. I don't care what the number is, but this is what we're going to have pre-approved that for the project manager to spend in order to accomplish whatever X is. Again, maybe that's an acuMatica implementation, maybe that's whatever that is, but it doesn't have to be. It can be anything that we're doing. I'm trying to keep this as generic as possible. All right, so this is what the approved budget is, and achieve all of the project objectives. Project manager will be assembling an initial team, can be reached at blah, blah, blah. All right, again, this is just so that we know where we can get a hold of these folks. All right, next up, we're going to talk about the initial team. So we've defined the two most important roles, which is the executive sponsor and the project manager. And now we're going to talk about how we're going to start to structure this team, not in any grave detail, at a pretty high level. So the initial project team will consist of 3 people, 7 people, 12 people. Again, we're just going to put that number in, taken possibly from different areas of the company that might be related. We might need to get input from various people throughout the organization. And notice here that what we're doing is we're saying that a project is a little bit different in that the structure, the hierarchy, is not necessarily the same as the structure and hierarchy in the company itself. Right? Because sometimes on a project, everybody reports to the project manager. And in some cases, that's an outside person, or it actually might be something inside the organization, and the project team consists of a bunch of vice presidents who don't normally, quote, report to that person. Not a question of reporting so much as it is responsible for communicating upwardly in the engagement. So that's why I want to make sure that we have that element of success here. So they might be taken from various areas of the company. I love this language. If you are called to serve on this team, please do so knowing that you have the approval of management, i.e. the executive sponsor. So I think it's important for the executive sponsor to be as high up in the organization as you possibly can get. If it's the CEO, great. That would be fantastic. Doesn't always work out that way. I get it. Might be somebody lower down, but it should be somebody who really does have the authority to make this happen. So if you are called to serve on this team, you have the approval of the management, i.e. me, to approve of this. If you feel that you cannot serve on the team, please let me know. Please let me know, and we'll see if we can reassess your current priorities. That's why I'm saying that this is important, right? And then the next thing is, if you're not asked to serve, please don't think it's because your input is unwanted. We're going to just solicit feedback from everyone at a certain point. Now, why would we have this language in here about if you're not asked to serve? Well, who are we sending this to? And the answer to that question is as many people as we possibly can inside the organization where it makes sense. Now, for most small and medium businesses, I would think that this would be some kind of a communication that goes out to everyone in the organization and lets them know, hey, this is something we are working on. This is the way effective organizations communicate with their people, to let them know that there are different things that are happening inside the organization. So we want to let them know that we're changing our ERP system, or we are making changes to some kind of data structure or integration or whatever the project is. We want to let people know what's going on. Now, the other thing that this paragraph does is it also establishes the authority of the project manager themselves. So in other words, what we're doing here is we are the authority from the executive sponsor is flowing to the project manager. So if you're called to serve on this team, you'd have the approval of management. And so that if the project manager asks you to do something, pretend it's me, CEO or whoever, asking you to do it because we think that this is so important. One of the reasons for that, I think that oftentimes projects will fail inside these organizations is that the project manager does not have an equal, appropriate amount of authority and responsibility. Oftentimes they are given the responsibility for doing something, right? They're given the responsibility, but they are not given the authority. What the project charter does is formally and in writing gives them the authority. Nope, they have this power to get these things done, right? And ask people to participate. So I think that that is one of the key elements of this document is this investing of authority in the project manager, and that means people who are asked to serve on the team will be needing to pay attention. Kind of important to do that. Um, so what are some other elements? So we'll go through these in a little bit of detail. Uh, what is the business need? Now, these next sections can be sometimes, maybe a sentence or two, or they can be 3 or 4 paragraphs, depending upon the size of the project that you're trying to get accomplished here. So click and describe the circumstances that prompted this. So what was the problem that we uncovered? And I think this is an important piece too, is what evidence did you find that you had the problem? That should be listed in this business need area as well. So not only what are the circumstances, so the circumstances include a couple things, what prompted this, and what is the evidence that your organization has that this is something that is worthwhile to be looked into and to be fixed and to be worthy of having a project around, right? Next thing, what are the services, products, knowledge that is needed to get this done inside this organization? So what are the crucial characteristics? So this may be inherently obvious in some cases, like, hey, what the product that's needed is acuMatical or a new ERP system or some sales tax software, right? So it might be inherently obvious, but it also might be something a little bit more esoteric in some organizations, like we need to develop a knowledge base. Maybe we have a project inside your organization to increase the knowledge of our team around how we use AI in our everyday jobs. That might be a project worthy of putting in place in some organizations, and I think it should have a project charter. But notice there that what's needed is something that's a little bit more nebulous, right? It's additional knowledge that's needed around that. So it's not necessarily a product or even service per se. It's some knowledge, and those are sometimes harder to define. But that's why I put in this product, service, and or knowledge needed. Okay, next, what are the known issues that this project is expected to fix, or and perhaps even more importantly, what are the desired results that this will achieve? And I separate those things out into two different things for a number of reasons. One, when we're doing a project in a small and medium business, it's oftentimes not enough to revert ourselves to the status quo. And fixing a problem just really reverts us back to the status quo. What I think is important to note when you're looking at a project inside a small and medium business is not it has to go beyond that. It has to go beyond just fixing the initial problem. It has to go to what are some anticipated expected results in the future that are above and beyond just fixing the problem. So what is the upside potential of doing this that is not just about fixing the initial problem, but takes us somehow into the future? What kind of a transformation is happening inside your organization that will allow you to get there? All right, so I think that's why I have this broken down into two components. So expected to fix, and then desired results. I really think it's important to think of this in terms of not just outputs, but outcomes. And let me tell you a quick story to illustrate what I mean by that. I have a friend of mine who owned a house he inherited a house, I should say, in Las Vegas, and his aunt passed away and left him the house. He didn't want to sell the house, but he wanted to put it up on Airbnb and have folks rent it when they were coming to Vegas. But he didn't live in Las Vegas. He actually lived in Utah. So one of the things that he was looking for is he was looking to get a landscaper for the house so that he didn't have to worry about it. Well, this was actually a little bit more difficult than you can think of because he didn't live in the area. He didn't have a network of people that he could ask. I guess he could have pounded on the neighbor's door and say, hey, what landscaping companies do you use? But what he did was he solicited, looked up some folks online, And he had 3 different landscapers come out and approach him on what it was that he wanted. The first guy came out and he had his clipboard and he's looking around and he's writing some things down, and he has a conversation with Tim after he investigates the property and says, Tim, we're XYZ landscaping company. This is how we work. We're $25 an hour. It's pretty clear here that we're going to have to mow your lawn every week. We're going to change over the beds every so often. We're going to edge. We're going to do clean out these different areas once a quarter, and then we'll send you a bill for $25 an hour. Sometimes it'll take us 2 hours. Sometimes it'll take us 4 hours. Might even be 8 hours when we need to do a fall cleanup. All right. The second landscaper had the same clipboard and was walking around, inspected the property. But what he did is he gave Tim a fixed price. He said, it's going to be $250 a month, and I'm going to do the following things. I'm going to edge, I'm going to mow, I'm going to turn over the flower beds, I'm going to fall cleanup, etc. So it's the same punch list, but different approach. The third guy also had a clipboard, but before he even started inspecting the property, he said he wanted to have a conversation with Tim. And he said, so Tim, tell me a little bit about this property. And Tim told him the story. I inherited this property from my aunt, passed away. And the landscaper says to you know what, Tim? I think I got what you want here. He says, I'm going to make sure that this house has the best curb appeal in the neighborhood. It may cost you $350 a month, but I am going to make sure that this house has the best. If a tree falls down, or I will replant it. I will plant new flowers for you seasonally to make sure that your house will have the best curb appeal in the neighborhood. So Tim, when he's telling us this story, then asks us, so which landscaper do you think I went with? And everyone's like, well, you went with a third one. and the coda of the story, the punchline of the story is Tim says, I wanted to hire the third. He doesn't exist. He was in my imagination, right? I only had the other two. I had the first person who came out and was trying to sell me his inputs, how many hours it was going to take him to do it. The second guy gave me a list of outputs, but what I really wanted was an outcome. What I really wanted was an outcome. And what I think is true of projects in small and medium businesses is that what people want, what the ownership, leadership, executive sponsor of the organization ultimately wants, is not just inputs, not just effort, and not just a punch list of outputs, but some kind of desired outcome, some desired new state in the future. That's ultimately what they want. So that's where this known issue comes in, where you want to explore this notion of what is the outcome, not even just the results, but the results. I'm sorry, that what are the results? What is the outcome we're looking for? Not just a list of inputs or outputs. All right, last 3 quick sections of this. First is any known constraints that we have, right? So time, cost, scope, quality, or other resource factors that will factor in. Let me talk a little bit about when project people talk about constraints. What do they mean by a constraint? And it's a little bit like if you've ever seen the American Gladiator or one of those shows where you have to run through an obstacle course, right? Constraints are the known obstacles that are in the way. We know we have to, jump through tires or go back and forth over this series of oddly placed wedges, or climb up a wall, or do whatever it is. But notice that we know them ahead of time. We know what the obstacle course looks like. Those are constraints. Those are the things that we want to list here that might be in the way of us of us getting to the desired outcome that we talked about. And that's what we want to list here. What are these known obstacles? What could possibly, not always will, but what could possibly get in the way? And we want to mention those things here. And then all of this will be an input, by the way, into the more detailed planning process. We're going to flush it out in far more detail when we get to a plan. But again, this is just the project charter area. And then lastly, what are our known assumptions that we have? What are we presumed to be true? What do we think? What do we and things that might be used as an assumption is that we believe we can best achieve this if we have an outside contractor work with us. That would be an assumption. All right. So what are our known assumptions? Facts that we presume to be true. And then lastly, we have this area where we're just going to say the approval. Note that the person who is going to, quote, sign this, and it, again, may not actually be a physical document that people sign off on. This might be an email, but this is going to be somebody to say, yes, I have authored this project charter and officially authorized that work can begin. Right. And this is the thing that says this project has now come into being and we are moving forward with this. And I have transferred this is the executive sponsor now, I have transferred my authority and the responsibility over to the project manager. Now, again, I believe that this document, this relatively short document that we've gone through in about 25 minutes or so, can significantly reduce the probability of failure on the overwhelming number of small and medium-sized business IT related projects, because this almost assures, not completely, but almost assures that you are not going to have the number one reason for failure, which is that the leadership did not fully buy in. So relatively short document, really easy to put in play. A couple of quick tips on this. If you have any current projects that you're working on right now inside your organization, it's not too late. Go put a project charter in place. In fact, I think it's something that you can learn is if you're willing to try to document this. Even, by the way, if you're not the executive sponsor, but you know who is, write the project charter for them and ask them if they will send out this email that you have authored for them. The worst that can happen is that they say no to you. And I believe that what you will learn then is that you really don't have the full buy-in of the executive sponsor, and that might be a problem. So you need to make some adjustments to that thinking. Best case, they will send this out, and then you will have reestablished the authority and responsibility of the project manager. So I think it's a no-lose situation. It's not a win situation, but it's a no-lose situation, because at the worst cases, you can learn something that you don't properly have the authority and responsibility that you really thought you had. So that's the document. Again, if you want me to send this to you, I think there's probably a mechanism for this at acuCONNECT. But if not, I did put my email on the slide. Let me bring that up. You can just shoot me an email to ed@thresholdnow.com. Just make the subject line charter or project charter. That's all you need to do. And I'll make sure to send you a copy of this document out and that you can use freely. So let me flip in here, and I'm only got one screen at a time here. Do I have the ability to see questions? Please add them. Okay. Oh, hey Tim, how are you? Good to see you. Good. Looks like everybody does. I don't see any questions there that were pertaining to that. What I can do, I guess, is
I think Tim had one question about the data that you showed, like what was that data time frame? Or somebody had a question.
Let's see. Was that in the?
It was in the chat. I don't know.
What surprised you? Buggy software ranks.
Yeah, that one.
Data from. Oh, there it is, Tim. So if you search for, I said the name earlier, the name of the group, Standish Group. They constantly are refreshing this. So I think that the data that I had on this was from maybe 18 months ago, the last time I put the slide together. So, but if you Google search Standish Group, they have a report. I don't think you have to pay for the executive summary, but you do have to pay for the details. So you might want to check that out. But Standish Group.
Can you put that in the chat, Ed?
Yeah, Standish Group.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you for joining today, and thank you, Ed, for a great presentation. And it's good to kick off the project with a project charter and get sign off and buy-in and the authority to do the project. So,
outstanding. Well, good to see you
Thank you
guys.
so much.
All right. Take
Bye.
care.
See you on the next session.
Yep.